What does it mean to be in the world, but not of it? I'm sure you've heard that statement from the Bible that living in the world, but not of it. And I remember many years ago when I started my own waking up process in many different ways, different teachers, different experiences. There was a time where I just started feeling like, my God, nothing here feels real. It's like I walk around in a video or something or in a movie, but it all felt so unreal, almost like walking around, um, in a 2D world. That's almost what it felt like. There was no substance to it, it was just images. And it was a little bit of a weird experience because everything started feeling dead, not real, not alive. And there was still a lot of left of my identity that wanted to have experiences out there. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like the whole process, it's just things fall away, things open up. So wherever we are on our journey, we have certain experiences, and they're all totally valid. Just saying that everything is valid. Never ever compare yourself with anybody else on the journey. Whatever I share here, you may relate to it, you may not, you may have experienced it 10 years ago, and it's like, oh yeah, I know that. And it's all, there's no hierarchy or certain steps that have to follow the other. We just don't know. It all depends on what layers are being seen and released and healed and seen through. But back to this being in the world and not of it. I would say that's a very normal, common thing that we all are going to experience as we wake up. And what is it? What is that like? Okay, so I can speak again from my own experience that I would say that the learning not to react to the world with our emotions has been a huge part of my being not of it, being in it, but not of it. Because I'm still here, I'm still doing my thing, I still have experiences inside, still reactions inside to the outer world, but it's lessened like so much over the years. But there's still reactions, and they're probably always going to be there, but they're not grabbing me, they're not pulling me in to believe it. If they do, it's for a short while, and that's fine. Then there's probably another layer I just need to allow to move through, and then it's gone. So the whole concept of not touching, do not touch it, that has been another huge part, just like not reaction or not touching it. It's kind of the same, isn't it? Not fighting it, not resisting it. Those are all ways that we engage with the world, and then we are of the world. In the beginning, when you stop touching the world, when you start practicing, should say it more like that, when you start practicing not touching your reactions, not letting them have the best of you. When you start that, it feels very awkward in the beginning because that's all we have done until now. We are just one big ball of reaction, emotional attachment to the world, emotional resistance to the world. So of course, what we're not touching is our reaction, because that is kind of the bridge, right? From our beingness, then there's a reaction that latches on to the outer world, and boom, we're off the world, and off we go. And it's usually not so good. It's good for a while too, of course, but there's always something that might shift so that we can practice to realize who we truly are and not keep trying to live a dream and improve a dream and be successful in a dream and feel loved in a dream. It is a dream, but it's a pretty good dream when we are totally of it, right? It seems so real. So as we stop touching it and that becomes more habitual, easier, maybe even enjoyable, that after a while, it's like, oh, thank God, it's not true. Thank God I don't need to touch that or engage with that. And if we need to engage with things, which we do, because we're still here, then we can do it without the emotional reaction or the emotional attachment or the emotional resistance. And then it's so much easier. So it's becoming of, not being of the world, but just realizing that we are in the world and we can enjoy it for what it is without the attachment. The attachment is when we become of the world. So when you can see that it is that emotional expression that comes out, it's like an energy that comes out of us, right? I like that. I don't like that. I want that. I don't want that. I like you. I don't like you. It is a dualistic thing with the emotions, right? It's flip-flopping from one dual to another dual. And that is the three-dimensional world we live in the dualistic world. And we are attached to our attachments. It's really convoluted, guys. It's really convoluted. When you start unraveling, you go like, what? Because there's this other part that wants to hold on to the emotions, to the emotional attachments. And that's usually the one that may not want us to let it go. It's like, no, I want to feel this. No, I want to have my cup of coffee. No, I want to be angry at them. No, I want to be right about it. So there is that, maybe it's called the saboteur. That's a word that's used a lot, right? That prevents us to moving forward with what we really want. If that is our goal, to not be of the world anymore, and just be in it, then we need to see all these layers that want to stop us all the time. And then, guess what? Then we have to not touch that either. So if we move forward, it's like, oh, I'm not going to react, or I'm not going to engage in my reaction. I would say we can't stop reacting because it's an automatic reflex, but we can choose to not engage in it. And I need to say also, there is also a very important place that we do need to engage with these reactions. I just want to make sure that nobody believes I'm talking about a spiritual bypass. If it's a bypass, you're not ready to let it go. It needs something to get unhooked. So as long as there's hooks inside, we cannot bypass them. It's just not a good idea because they'll come back and bite us. So if there's emotional attachments that are not ready to let go, and there's a lot of those, and they're valid, they need something from us before they are ready to let go. That's the deep work we all need to do. That's the deep self-inquiry we need to engage in. As long as we want to blame somebody out there, there is a trauma, there is a pain in there that cannot be bypassed. So it needs to be met. It needs to be met with love, with understanding, acceptance, so that it can start softening. There might be tears, there might be anger, there might be a lot of emotions, a lot of energy that needs to be softened and released. And then we can say, oh, I'm not going to touch that anymore. I'm not going to blame there anymore. I'm not going to be righteous about that anymore. But it's because we have met these attachments and these emotions from a place of love and expansion, so that they can also be in the world, but not of it anymore. So very important to understand the difference between bypassing and meeting it in order to help it unhook. It's like night and day. And we want to stay with what supports us in the letting go. So I always want to invite you to practice not touching your emotional attachments. If you have an emotional reaction, you can turn around and be present with it in a way that it feels met, that it feels heard and seen, so that it can start relaxing. Then the reaction to the outer world disappears. It's just how it works. At least, I have to say, at least in my experience, and the people I work with, there is something when we meet it inside with love, it does not have that charge to grasp onto something in the world. And then we can stay here. And then we can be in the world from a place of presence, peace, joy, stillness, love, acceptance, right? So we walk in the world. We are in the world, but we are not of it, because we are not grasping onto something emotionally, whether it's wanting to pull it in or push it away. That is our reaction. I hope you can get that it's the energy from inside that goes out to do something. This is what we are not touching anymore, when it's ready to not be touched. If it's not ready, we touch it with love to help it heal, to help it relax. And then you can just and it's a very wonderful, liberating feeling too, to not feel the need to react anymore. And I want to add one piece to this that has been very important in my own process too. Once we let go of the world and just are in the world, as I'm talking about, then you start realizing that which I am, which you are, that which we are at the core, that is what fulfills our life in ways that we cannot. Not through hard work, strive, struggle, but by resting and learning to rely on it, learning to trust it, which is another big process, right? It's because we don't trust this that we latch onto the world for survival. And that's another big attachment, thinking that we need the world to survive. So little by little, as we let go of that, then that energy goes here. And then we can use some quotes that help you to trust it, or read some things, or listen to people that you respect, that you trust, that can give you that sense of understanding that this that is looking through our eyes, this very moment, that is who we are, and that is infinity itself. and there is no lack in infinity. So everything is provided, not because we deserve it or have worked hard for it. It's simply because it is the flow of the divine that just flows in its fullness. And the more we can just relax back into the flow, let it take us. Everything is being provided for. Maybe not all at once, but as we need it. So our needs are being met. The more we rest back into the infinite flow where there is no lack. So we have to keep coming back here and keep trusting it more and more so we can relax and receive. And with that, I want to just end today with my favorite little quote that came to me many years ago. That is kind of my inner deeper mantra, which is, I am deeply relaxed in the effortless flow and fulfillment of God's loving grace.